to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl!
Welcome to Patriots Touchback Podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome on back to the Patriots Touchback Podcast. We're doing a preview show tonight of our Week 2 matchup against our divisional rival, shall we say, in the Miami Dolphins. I've got my mate Kieran on standby with me to be my co-host tonight. Hopefully you're all well. But let's welcome our guest of honor. It's none other than Lee from Dol-Fan UK podcast. Lee, good evening, sir. How are we doing? How has your week been?
I'm hoping that it's going to get a little bit better talking to you fellas.
We can't promise anything, but we'll try our best.
We will try and be as professional as we can. Just let you know, everyone that's watching, the link to Dol-Fan UK's channel is in the title and it's in the description below. So make sure you go and check them out. They're on Spotify as well with their podcast. I recently listened to them earlier on this evening of your week one recap, which we'll get into. So yeah, make sure you smash a like and make sure you hit the subscribe button to Dol-Fan UK and subscribe to us as well on the road to 100 subs. So let's get there. Okay, Lee, as you're our guest of honor, we're going to try and be as professional as we can because we are divisional rivals at the end of the day. Week 1 didn't exactly go particularly well for you. I mean, I had you down as a win against the Colts. I think anyone that's led by Daniel Jones, you got to assume that you'd get the W there. That was not the case. So just give us a brief dossier of what went down.
Yeah, I think probably the best way to sum that up is like and subscribe. We'll see you next week. That'd be great. No, in all seriousness, so. It's hard to defend it because it was so poor on the field. I think it's pretty safe to say we expected to go in there and win. Seen Daniel Jones play a few times in person, not very good, and we managed to make him look like prime Marino. So, that's something I suppose we achieved in week 1. I think probably the biggest takeaway from it though was that it was so unexpected, and not just a loss. So that sounds cocky, like you think you're a team that should go in there and win. And as we all know, any given Sunday in the NFL. But it's the manner of the performance. It was so bad, and I think you would have seen from across the division. The biggest criticism of the Mike McDaniel-led Dolphins teams over the last 4 years. Has been their ability to not beat good teams that they should beat. They generally go and beat. So this one came pretty out of left field, I would say. Not really just the result, but the manner of the performance. And that was as bad a performance as I've seen by a Dolphins team in a very, very long time. When you take into account, it's still a fairly talented roster. We'll talk about some off-season stuff. I think you mentioned in a bit, but it shouldn't have been as bad as it was on the field last week.
The last time I recall the Dolphins getting beaten that bad, well, I think that was probably your second worst result I've ever seen your side. I think the biggest one I've seen was when you was at home, Baltimore come to town. They dropped, what was it, nearly 50 on you? Yeah. That was a sorry show.
I think you can probably see the difference in the fan reaction between the two. That was kind of expected. Like, they stripped this roster down that year. They traded away any usable asset 7 days before the season, and were in full tank mode. So I think that one was taken a little better than this one, because I don't think that's the case here.
I think when looking at it as a neutral, I'm just looking at how Daniel Jones just had his way with you. I've never seen him play that good, ever. And the Colts are not exactly, they've got good pieces around them, but they're not exactly Super Bowl contenders, are they? They're a middle of the road team that are on like on the cups of the playoffs, but they're always a team that's always, they could get there, but we know they're going to get bounced in the first
I
round.
hope they're a Super Bowl team. That would make me feel a lot better. But no, completely agree with you. You know, this is a team that, you know, should have been middle of the road. Daniel Jones has never looked that good ever. But to be fair, I mean, they threw up some stats, and I can't remember there was 4 players they compared him to for week 1 performances on a new team, and it was like Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, and someone else who's in the Hall of Fame. You're like, and the next guy on that list was Daniel Jones. It's like, it was an impressively bad performance. But I think, and please stop me if I get too far off track, but I think the thing that was probably most concerning is there's been a lot of people out there in the media this week who say, oh, Mike McDaniel is a bad coach, the team don't want to play for him, or all those sort of things. Fine. Defense never turned up either. If the Dolphins had scored on every offensive drive, they still wouldn't have won the game because the Colts did. So it wasn't even like the defense was playing well either. There was 0 pass rush. There was busted coverage. So it was as bad as it could get. And again, that comes kind of out of left field. That's not been a trait of this team under this coach. So, you know, yeah, I can't defend it because it's what it is. Like, they were that bad. But I say it was a bit of a shock.
There seemed to be like a real exodus of talent over the off season. A good mate of mine is a Dolphins fan, and he was pretty sure there was going to be some form of regression this season going into the year. You look at obviously losing Holland and Ramsey, Teron Armstead, you know, among others. But like maybe not quite to the extent that it looked like in week 1. I guess the question is like, one, how much has that off-season exodus affected you guys in terms of both on and off the field? And 2, do you think it's a short-term thing, what happened against the Colts, or is there enough talent on the roster to perhaps turn the corner?
I think there's definitely enough talent on the roster to turn the corner. That's why we all had us beating the Colts in week 1, because the talent still exists there. It's interesting because the players they lost in free agency is kind of semi-alarming. So, you know, Jalen Ramsey wanted to leave. That was well documented. It wasn't the Dolphins thought that he was past it or anything. He just wanted out. So they facilitated that and sent him to someone who wanted him. Cool. Javon Holland wanted to leave as well. So that's 2 players in your back. And Teron Armstead, I think, was always retirement was on the cards every year because his body was just starting to let him down, which is a shame because I love watching Teron Armstead play. If anyone is a fan of O-line play, like, you get a chance to watch Teron Armstead tape, it's a fun watch. And he's done a really good job grooming his replacement, who was, and I say this slightly tongue-in-cheek, the only bright spot may have been his replacement, who played pretty well as his first start at left tackle, and it filled in some pretty big shoes. But I mean, there's still enough talent on this roster that it should be capable of winning plenty of games this year. I think it was put pretty well. It's kind of like a soft reset where essentially they try to manage some cap issues that they're going to have going forwards, but without completely stripping the roster of any talent.
Do you think they made perhaps a few mistakes in the offseason, like in terms of where to target, like in the draft and whatnot? Because I think a lot of people going into the draft this year probably had you guys going offensive line in round 1, and you went Kenneth Grant, who is a great player, don't get me wrong. But like, you look at the offensive line, and trust me, on this podcast, we've spent the last 18 months watching the most horrid offensive line play, so we're pretty used to it. That was a pretty rough watch. I know you mentioned it's a Patrick Paul, your left tackle, had a reasonably good game, but it's a line that's had a lot of changes, and it just seemed like Tua was getting swarmed on every play. So do you think perhaps that the lack of addressing the offensive line has perhaps handicapped your offense a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the thing that gets this front office run out of town, because it's pretty much been a staple of this offense over the last probably 9 years since the GM's been at the helm, that they will not put enough assets into the offensive line. Now, we talk amongst ourselves, and we always have the debate of, would you give up an offensive piece to secure the O-line? And to be honest, I've watched every one of Tua's games from Alabama all the way through to now, and I think I would rather have a wall in front of him and lose one wide receiver. Do you know what I mean? I think that would be a trade-off that you'd be willing to make, because at the moment, it doesn't really matter who's running routes if rushers are coming completely free. And then it also doesn't help, if the guy standing back there has a history of injuries.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster when there's concussion history, and it does make you wince a little bit, even as a neutral, just to kind of see them all coming in and thinking one bad hit, and that could be not just career-ending, but that could be like potentially life-threatening as well with the amount he's gone through.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. That first bad concussion that he took, I say bad, I mean, I completely understand. I am trying to rank here the severity of a bunch of really bad concussions, but that first one on the Thursday night against Cincinnati, I'll be honest, I sat here watching in fear for him because it looked very bad. I was at the Buffalo game where he got hurt last year, and it's the problem's always been a little bit catch-22, because the play last year, they're down, I think they were down 17. They had the ball going into the half. They got the ball coming out the second half, and he's trying to score on a fourth down play. So, if that's anyone else who doesn't have a concussion history, you're saying that's what I want my quarterback to do, is to try and put the team on his back and try and make something happen. The problem is when you know what's coming at the end of it, because he's going to lower his head and he's going to try and run through somebody, and the problem is he can't do it.
I think as a neutral watching Tua play, I think he's a very, very good quarterback. I think he's a brilliant human being. I'm like, we were divisional rivals. I was like, we shouldn't really be worrying about other players on their team. But when a certain player has gone through this much concussion history, and it's in the most important position in any of the rosters at quarterback, you're just looking at it thinking, if this line doesn't hold up, he's going down. I do not want to see it.
Right. And that's the thing. I think it's scary for anyone who has to witness it as well. It's a horrible thing. It must be terrible for his family. Terrible. It was terrible being in the stadium. You could just feel the shift in the atmosphere throughout the stadium. And like you say, your rivals are other teams, but you don't ever want to see someone actually get hurt. That's not it. Do you know what I mean? Would you like to not face someone in a week? Absolutely, but you don't want to see someone get hurt. That's not the game, is it?
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Lee, was your cornerback room, because, obviously, we spoke about this earlier on in the week on our other podcast about that. I'm sure the average NFL fan probably couldn't name the Dolphins starting corners, because there's been so much overhaul there in terms of players in and out. So we know Jack Jones, obviously he tries to pick six the ball, even though if he's on the other side of the field. And obviously we don't know much about Storm Duck. So do you think is that gonna be an area perhaps that teams are gonna go after big time now?
I'll be honest, I thought you were going to start by offering your services to play there.
I don't think you'd want me out there, mate.
To be fair, they might be plucking someone from the stand come Sunday. The cornerback situation is really interesting. You said earlier, do you think that the front office made some mistakes in the off season? This is one of those ones that it's hard to file under mistake, because it's a very conscious decision. Since essentially, this GM's been in place for a long time, one thing he's always had is a high-priced, big-name corner. And most of the time, he's tried to get two. And that's why you saw an Xavier Howard and Jalen Ramsey. He paid a lot of money for Byron Jones. It's been kind of a staple of his that he wants a big-name corner. Well, this year, they very purposely didn't do that. They knew they were trading Ramsey. They knew all along Ramsey was going. That was happening from the end of last season. they chose not to do it and try and keep the pass rush, which is an interesting change of philosophy. Now, he generally tries to give the coaches what they want. And I think changing to the Baltimore system is interesting because they've got kind of more depth in the front seven than they probably need when you're so deficient at corner. But that Baltimore system involves rotating those players out so regularly that it feels like a very conscious decision to say, okay, the back end just needs to hold up if the pass rush can get home. But it's an interesting roster building decision.
Yeah, I guess like first couple of games of the season, the Colts don't really have what you'd guess would classify as a high-end wide receiver one. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background, but you guys can hear that. We obviously don't have what you would classify as a high-end wide receiver one. Our biggest threat is probably a favourite of this podcast, and that's Kayshon Boutte, who's had obviously a great first week of the season. So, as much as you guys are struggling at corner, I don't know how much we're going to perhaps go after that, or whether our receivers are going to cause much threat. But I guess it's when you get further into the rest of the season, when you start coming up against those big guys, if you are getting shredded by lower end guys, like it doesn't bode well exactly for further in the season, does it?
Yeah, I think the thing we need to find out quickly.
Door. Sorry, carry on.
Go on.
Go on,
I think the thing about the Dolphins is it's very easy to say, okay, they are what they were in week one. The problem is I don't know if that's true because no one predicted them other than PFF, who hate the Dolphins either way. No one had them being that bad. They all had them being a middling team, but no one had them being, the dumpster fire that was week one. So really, we need to see maybe 3 weeks to get a decent picture, because you'd say the Colts aren't, like you say, weren't some sort of juggernaut coming into week one. The Patriots pose quite a different threat in week two, and then you play the Bills on the road on a short week in week three. You're probably going to know by the end of 3 weeks exactly what this team actually is. And I'm interested to find out. I did go back through some of the stats for the last 5 years, and there's a bunch of teams that have been plus 10 win teams and made it into the playoffs and won playoff games, taking exactly the same defeat we took in week one. It's not unprecedented, and it's actually happened to a couple of coaches from the same coaching tree. So I don't know. Again, this sounds really bad. It sounds like I don't know my team, but I'm just like, that's not the performance that I recognise. I think before, when we've seen them lose, it's been like, cool, I can see exactly why that's happened. It was reason X, X, and X, because those are our deficiencies. This wasn't that. I mean, no one played, other than Patrick Paul, it's very hard to point at anyone who played well or anything that went well. And that's just, I think it makes it hard to judge because, like you say, they looked worse than the team that won like 3 games.
And
talk to us.
Go on, Karl. You go.
Talk to us a little bit about Mike McDaniel. So I look at him as a head coach, right? I think when he's with the grain and the Dolphins are ahead of the curve, I feel like his style of play suits them so much better. When they're trying to play from behind, it does feel like a bit of a slog. Here's what but that doesn't bother me because we know he's a very smart guy, such a smart guy, such a sharp guy. But he spoke in the offseason about wanting to see more toughness, more accountability.
I'm glad you said.
And since he's come in, he hasn't acted like for accountability or toughness because he plays a very. I'm not going to go the soft route because that's disrespectful. More of a fine tuning type of game that he uses that he orchestrates, and he's been doing it for a number of years, and it's worked to a certain degree. But now he's trying to wants the toughness, he wants the accountability. And it always feels like he's gone in. He's gone in looking like you want to be his best mate, and now he's wanted to be the main sergeant of the pack, and no one can take you seriously because for the last 3 years you've been, you've been playing very finesse type of football. None of it is really hard hitting, and that now you want it. It feels like, oh, okay, that doesn't really. This is why Dan Campbell gets a lot of praise and a lot of respect, because he went to Detroit and he came and, we're going to bite kneecaps off. It's toughness. He accepted accountability from the minute he did his first press conference. Now you see him just simmer down a little bit. You can understand that, because it's like, we still take it serious. We know when he's ready to play ball, we're ready to play ball. Whereas Mike McDaniel, it just feels like now this was, okay, it's week 1. Shit happens in the NFL in week 1. We know that for a fact. It might just be a blip, or it could be something further. We're not going to know until after week 2 or week 3. What is your take right now on Mike McDaniel's position? Is he safe at this moment in time, or could he be in big trouble as the season goes along, depending on the results?
I mean, it's all going to come down to the manner of the results, I think. If you lose, there's only one team in history that's not lost a game, right? So the losses are coming one way or the other. For every team in the NFL, that's just going to happen. You can't act like you did week 1. It cannot be that bad. Now, a lot of people have been in the media. Two is on a short leash. McDaniel's on a short leash all off season. It's cool. The GM's going to go. Nothing about their strategy on the off season supports that. I do question, and I mentioned it on our show the other day. The media say they want the Dolphins to be tougher. Fans of other teams say the Dolphins need to be tougher. Talking heads say the Dolphins need to be tougher. Maybe they just need to lean into what they are and continue to be the finesse team. Because at the moment, if you try to make this team tough, like you say, if you wanted Mike McDaniel to be tougher than he is, well, that's not him. So does that play well? I don't know. Like you said, I don't know if you can undo the last, the way he set his stall out as a head coach. But I don't think you can just come in one day and be like, cool, going to crack the whip. Like that's not who he's been as a coach. I do know, behind the scenes, he is a shouter. He does crack down on the team. But that's not who he is in the media. He's an expert at getting up on the podium there and giving a 20-minute interview and saying absolutely nothing.
So it sounds like someone from the Arsenal PR team by the looks of it.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? And I wonder if people are focused on the Dolphins being tougher. That's fine, but I don't know if it's as simple as just saying, "Cool, we want to be tougher, so we'll be tougher." If they were, I think they would have been in the first place. So I think they should just need to lean into what they are, which is a finesse offense. It's going to come with its pros and cons. We've seen plenty of times where it's worked very well and they've looked like a great offense. Tua led the league in passing, 2 years ago? 2 back-to-back years he was in the MVP conversation till he got hurt late. It's like, that is what is in this offense and this quarterback. I don't think they forgot to play football forgot how to play football over the off season.
I guess
that was a rambling answer to a question. But
that's all right. I mean, my question was rambling anyway, but it's all right. Go on, Kieran.
I was just saying, I can understand how Mike McDaniel might be perceived because of his kind of laid-back mentality and stuff. And when the chips are down and you're in a tough situation, you want your coach to show a little bit of bit of passion, a bit of grit, and right, this is where we really show who we are. So I can see how that might annoy people, but I guess is he more to blame than the front office for the current situation you're in? From the outside, I don't think he is, but obviously you guys, will know a lot more than us about that.
It's very hard because I think the GM panders he's generally given the coaches what they've wanted. So if he hasn't got what he wants, it's because he's not asked for what he wants. Is the general perception and feeling of this front, the GM and the way this team has been run. It's difficult because we can say that Like he hasn't got the players. Maybe they haven't got the depth of talent. If you turn up like Sunday and no one turns up, it's very hard to say what you are. Like that's what makes this whole week so difficult. And I've been thinking about this since you asked me to come on. Like, how am I going to try and talk about this team? Because I don't know what to say. I was sat here speechless on Sunday, and then you go through the stages. It's almost like there's stages of mourning. Do you know what I mean? You're angry, and then you're a bit bitter. And
Grief.
Yeah,
It's
do you know
grief.
what I mean? Yeah, you just go through it, and you're like, every time I keep coming back to, well, how is it that bad? I've never seen Tua look that off. Right? Tua's played bad games, like every quarterback has played bad games, and there's games you can say absolutely he needs to do way better. I've never seen him look that bad for an entire game of football. It's just absolutely baffling. So at the moment, hard to say. Now come back to me when you play us later in the season. I might be able to give you an answer on whether this is a point the finger at the GM or the head coach.
So just looking ahead to Sunday then. So obviously Tua is undefeated against us as a starter. You know, we have historically not done very well in Miami. The last time we beat you guys at Hard Rock was the infamous Antonio Brown games. That's just how long ago that was. Yeah. But then again, Mike Vrabel is undefeated against the Dolphins as a head coach. So something's got to give, right? You know, one way or the other.
Absolutely. I mean, on paper, this is the sort of game that the Dolphins should want, right? A team that has generally struggled in Miami, has a new head coach, even though he's going back to somewhere he knows very well. Like, this is the sort of game you should want to play. Like you say, a team that gave us the biggest trouble as a team that we should have beaten was Mike Vrabel's Titans. So who knows what we're going to get. One thing that will never change is going to Hard Rock Stadium in September is not pleasant for a road team. It just isn't. It sometimes isn't pleasant as a fan. It can be unbearably hot.
Yeah, and that obviously is a factor. That's why traditionally over the years, and maybe not so much in recent years, but it's always been a case that we've split home and away because you guys don't like coming to the cold weather in Windsor.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and I think we're playing you guys like very late in the season again this year in Foxborough. So yeah. So I guess that it swings and roundabouts. But I guess like my next question would be like, how are the Dolphins fans viewing this game against us, and perhaps even viewing us as an opposition? Because obviously we went into the week one game against the Raiders where I think most people were expecting us to win. We were certainly all expecting us to win, and we probably should have won against them at home, but we didn't. We laid a bit of an egg in the second half, and suddenly we're 0-1, and if we drop this game to you, then it's the worst possible start.
Well, good news is we're in that same boat. I would say, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, I would say Dolphins fans fancied themselves in week two because we generally thought we had a better team than this. For all the players that we lost, I think at the time you could have made a pretty good argument that the offense should have been better than it was last year. Because you lose Teron Armstead and you lose a lot of talent and a lot of experience, but you replace him with a guy who's literally brought in to train under him for an entire season and played well in week one. But what you did do was upgrade the guard position, and then you went and upgraded the running back position. And to be honest, you probably upgraded the wide receiver position under Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. It's hard for me to say that that's actually panned out because, again, couldn't complete a pass last week for large chunks of the game. So I don't know, but I would say 2 weeks ago, I would say we fancied our chances. I still think you have to go in fancying your chances just based on you guys generally haven't played well at Hard Rock. We generally have played it's been an advantage against everybody, not just the Patriots. So yeah, I mean, I would have us as a small favourite after last week. It's completely in the air.
Yeah.
What would be your game plan going into this game? Which areas could you exploit off the Patriots defense and off their offense that would actually help you?
So this is absolutely going to sound like a cop-out answer, and probably goes to actually answering Kieran's question better than I just did. That I think the Patriots are actually flying a little bit under the radar here in regards to the Dolphins, and the fans are so focused on themselves that it's not really. It's about getting back to what they do. Like, if you can perform like the Dolphins offense we know you can be, you will have some success. You have to build from there, because at the moment, I'm sure they had a great game plan going into last week, until it wasn't a great game plan and we were all crying. So, but I think that what they have to do early is they have to get Tua going. This offense doesn't run without Tua. We've seen whenever a backup's tried to play, no one else can run this system the way he can, because players don't get the ball out fast enough and they don't have the accuracy that he does. So it's a case of getting him going early in some hopefully happy and familiar surroundings.
I guess, like, when you look at the matchup against us, like, we won't have Gonzalez this weekend, and that was a bit of a problem last week. As much as we are reasonably deep at corner, it obviously took away our ability to double someone on offense, and then maybe double Brock Bowers, and then you put a corner on Jacoby Myers. But we weren't able to do that last week. So had we had Gonzalez, I'd imagine we would have doubled Tyreek and left maybe Gonzo one-on-one with Jalen Waddle. So yep. I'm interested to see how we match you up in terms of those there. Keon White's also out, so obviously we've lost a bit of pass rush depth, and it's unclear whether Morgan Moses is going to play at right tackle. So, like,
I think he was limited. I think he was today, so he's probably questionable.
Vrabel basically said that they're hopeful he can go, but if not, like, we'll have a 7th round rookie play right tackle. So we'll see. But like, we're not really kind of going into this game like at full strength, are we, Karl? I'd say we've still got.
I mean, having Will Campbell at left tackle as a rookie is one thing, but to have Bryant over at right tackle as a rookie, that is to be. We're very fortunate we're not playing like the Cleveland Browns pass rush, like Myles Garrett, because that would be that he'll just have a field day on us. I'm more looking at how the Pats could exploit, not necessarily the because your secondary, apart from Rashard Douglas, that's really the only well-known corner that you actually have, and that we could exploit that a little bit. But the first thing I'm doing is making sure Tua is uncomfortable. Too many times we have not got to it. We can't lay a lick on him. I don't care what we do. I said we're taking away his first read and we are sending the house every single time. I think we ranked 6th or 7th in blitz rate last week. So how loud you got 2.5 sacks on Geno Smith? So that should be an alarm bell going off on the Miami O-line, because they know. Watching the tape, they'll see us. They'll see the likes of Hart Landry. They'll see the likes of Kevin or Jason come at us. I think
they've always got the alarm going on the Dolphins O-line. I think it's just permanently ringing in their ears.
Not against us, though.
but yeah, I mean, you're right. That's exactly somewhere that you need to exploit, and again, get Tua going through those progressions. I mean, there is this kind of weird. There's this weird thing that Tua is only a first-read quarterback. You look at Tua's biggest throws; they're actually not. You see him win the national championship game. It wasn't the first read, but also, I don't think being a first-read quarterback in this offense is quite the insult people think it is. Because if your first read's open, why do you go anywhere else? And when they've been successful, their first read has been open. Again. The exception of last week has generally been a quick decision maker and gets the ball out. That kind of lends itself to going to your first read often. If your first read's Tyreek Hill, quite often he's open as well.
I had read somewhere this week that you were down a couple of offensive linemen again this week, and I know that you guys signed Cole Strange as well from the Browns practice squad. That'll be a bit of a reunion. Yep. I don't know if you also saw. Obviously, the way we kind of played on defense last week, where Terrell Williams got incredibly aggressive, and we were sending 5-6 man rushes on a significant amount of plays. In fact, we talked about the play at the end of the game where we sent a 6-man rush on 3rd and 20 on the Raiders' 12-yard line, and they completed a deep bomb down the field. Now, we got aggressive. That obviously resulted in a lot of pressure. We generated a lot of pressure. Landry had 2.5 sacks. Chason and Williams were in the backfield an awful lot. So that's obviously going to be an area we can go after. But like, I just wonder whether they might just put the reins on a little bit after last week, because the last thing that we want, and Karl will probably agree with this, is that if we send 5-6-man rushes at you and 0 blitzes, Tua's just going to go, where's Tyreek Hill? There he is. And then that's going to be a problem.
That could absolutely be a very boom or bust strategy, because it could work. And if it works like it did, like the Colts managed to get it home last week, it could be very successful. The alternative is the Dolphins look somewhat competent and somewhat like last year's offense under Tua, or any offense under Tua, to be frank, and he puts up a bunch of points early. I was in the press box, I think it was last year, for the Colts game, and they put up a bunch of points early. And actually, one of the Boston media was sitting in front of me, and he was booking tickets to get on an earlier flight out. He intended to leave at halftime. The Patriots actually came back and made a game of it late on. But it was wild to see this guy complaining to the other sports writer next to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I was going to book a flight." Literally brought up the flight and booked it, ready to go.
I don't blame him. I mean, we've suffered through 2 terrible years, so.
But yeah, like you say, sending a lot of pressure could definitely work. It could definitely, that I'd say I think it's a pretty boom or bust strategy. If it works, it's going to be great, and if it backfires, it could backfire badly. So, again, should make for a good matchup.
Yeah. Do you guys think? Obviously, we didn't see a lot of him in week 1, but we know what an explosive, exciting player it is. But do you see Achane being featured maybe a little bit more this week? Because obviously, you guys had to abandon that last game, but we know what he's like with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I think Achane's really interesting because he's a great runner. He's great in space. He's kind of a home run hitting kind of running back. Where he's really underrated and people kind of forget about him is he's great in the passing game. They have a package of plays for him as a true wide receiver that they haven't got to yet. But yeah, I mean, look, they're going to try and feature him early. I think the other thing is the rookie that they brought in to back him up is kind of the perfect complement. I think last year they found they needed to use Achane as a kind of between the tackles runner more often than you'd want for a guy of his size. Whereas they drafted a rookie, Ollie Gordon, who should take up that role and should complement him nicely and allow him to actually go and do maybe some more exciting things, and that would be a little bit more in his wheelhouse.
Yeah, I must admit, I quite liked Ollie Gordon coming out of college. I mean, I think if he'd have been drafted the year before, he probably would have gone out a lot higher. But it was that terrible year at Oklahoma State where the whole wheels come off the entire team, where it really affected him. But I did think that was a nice pickup, to be fair.
Yeah, he's looked exactly like that in the preseason as well. Like, he's shown the flashes of, okay, this is a guy who should have been taken way higher. I was super excited when he came out, because a lot of Dolphins fans were excited about second-year player Jalen Wright, but I think Ollie Gordon has a chance to surpass him quickly. And with Jalen Wright getting hurt, Ollie Gordon's going to be the second man up.
Is Darren Waller going to play in this game? Do you know?
Is Darren Waller alive? Who knows?
Well, that's a good point because that's a good point because he kind of. It is no surprise that he kind of unretired and then was straight away on the injury report. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a head scratcher. I mean, he did some interviews after he retired, and he said the only guys that he would play for were the Dolphins coach there and John Gruden. So I'm not necessarily surprised it happened. This is one of these things that, again, the GM is hated for, I would say, in the fan base, because he seems to find a player like this every single year, where it's like, oh, we're going to get this guy who was at some point let's call him a name. Like at some point, Darren Waller was an exciting player to watch, especially for the Raiders a few years back. But that player never seems to actually play. And they go through large periods, especially when they first joined the team, of just being invisible. Odell Beckham did the same thing last year. People were like, oh, it's Odell Beckham. Like, great, here's another one. Will Fuller was the same. Like, never managed to produce a single thing. Spent most of his time hurt and then actually ended up retiring. Byron Jones, the same thing. So, this has been kind of a thread through the years. So I don't think anyone is surprised that this has happened. And as for do we see him? I mean, maybe sometime later in the season. I've seen him run the bike. He's not actually taken a full practice yet with the Dolphins, which is crazy and baffling. But again, you let Jonnu Smith go when you traded Jonnu Smith in the off-season. You needed to do something, and unfortunately, this is what you landed on as a plan.
Yeah, it seems a bit bizarre considering the success that Jonnu Smith had. I mean, we never saw any of that when he was with us, but he was genuinely really good, and you'd think that they would want someone of a similar ilk to come in and play that position because of how effective it was. And now, obviously, Waller's supposed to be the option, and he's not really played. And now I couldn't even tell you who the rest of your tight ends are.
I'm playing tight end, so it's fine. The thing about Jonnu having a great year was he did have a great year. I think a lot of that is down to the system. I think a couple of his biggest games were kind of outliers in regards to the way the Dolphins want to play. They got into a game with the Jets where they were losing at home last year to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, and Jonnu Smith didn't have a catch out the whole game. The last play of the drive to tie the game and take it to overtime was almost solely placed Jonnu Smith. They won the toss, and in the first drive of overtime went solely to Jonnu Smith, with the exception, I think, one play to Tyreek Hill. Scored a touchdown and won the game. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's a great Jonnu Smith game. And it's like, yeah, it was. But you forgot about the 3.5 quarters that he was completely absent. I do think he benefited from the time that Tua was hurt. Those backup quarterbacks were checking the ball down so much that it did kind of inflate those numbers. So I wasn't surprised they weren't willing to pay him what he wanted. But I thought they did a good job of getting him to a team that were willing to give him what he wanted. I think that was good on the front office. But again, I think they felt like they could replace him. They're just the plan at some point has fallen apart badly because Darren Waller is now the guy. But I think ideally, if this offense is running the way it should do, it shouldn't be featuring the tight end as much as it did.
Yeah, and obviously you guys brought in Nick Westbrook-Akino as well, who had probably the most underrated 9 touchdown season ever last year, out of nowhere.
and that's what I was saying. That's what I was kind of getting at earlier. Is I could make a decent argument that this offense should be better than last year's offense. I just can't do that this week because they played so unbelievably poorly last week. But you managed to a player that. He was a Patriot as well. Braxton Berrios played for the Patriots, right?
Yeah, he was flipping useless.
Exactly,
he was useless.
But you managed to replace a guy like him on the roster. I know he was hurt last year, but with Nick Westbrook-Akino, this roster should be better. That is a fairly significant upgrade at the position.
Yeah.
But again, it's hard for me to make that argument to you guys because all you got to do is point at last week and say, well, what the hell happened?
Yeah. Anything more from you, Karl?
I think we've got everything now covered. I don't think we're going to put you through the ringer anymore. So I think we've got one more segment to do. But first of all, let's get your predictions. So we'll start with the away team. Our guest of honour. So what's your result and what's your scoreline going to be?
Right. So anyone who's ever listened to our show will know exactly what's about to come here. I never pick against Dolphins because why not? I might as well look forward.
Spoken like a true homer. Carry on.
Exactly. I might as well enjoy it. There's plenty of other people. My co-host will give you a prediction of a loss if you need it. So I'm going to take the Dolphins 24-17. 21.
Kieran.
Yeah, I've been toing and froing about this one because you kind of weigh up like the kind of being brought back down to reality last week in a game that we should have won versus the, obviously then we have the factor of the whole Miami record for us, and us playing there in September in the baking heat is not a good recipe for us. But then I kind of thought back to it's never good for a team to have so many like, not distractions, but like obviously there's the Mike McDaniel stuff. There's the rumblings about a Tyreek Hill trade. I'm not too sure how true they are, but whether that happens or not, I don't know. Obviously, it's two wounded animals, isn't it? Like, I genuinely like. I know it's a bit of a vague answer, a bit of a basic answer, but like it genuinely could swing either way, I think. And I don't think that it's going to be another thing where we're gonna wax you like the Colts did last week, because I just don't think we're made up like that. But I'm just gonna go. I think we might just edge it based on just because of all the distractions off the field at the moment, like, and the questions being asked, and the O-line last week for you guys was an absolute disaster. And I think that's one area that can make a huge difference. I think that tilted the game hugely in the Colts' favor. And yeah, they've got a better defense than us, but ours is still getting good. I think I'm on a similar scoreline as you, Lee, but just the other way. So I'm going to go 24-20 New England. I do think you guys will put points on the board. And I do think whichever way it goes, I can see it being within 3 points. Well, I've gone 4, but 3-4 points. I think it will be a narrow victory for whoever takes it.
Yeah, I'm on the same. I think the scoreline we're all in the same ballpark. Before the season started, I had the first loss down as on the road to the Dolphins because it's always a notorious place to go. But after watching what happened in week 1, I'm like, let's give me some glimmer of hope that we might be able to do something. And this might just be me going back to the Kool-Aid for this one. I am going to take the Pats, and I'm going to go 23-20. I think we're around that similar sort of ballpark. So, yeah. So
I just think Mike Vrabel would have given them an absolute hammering this week.
Oh, they would.
And like he said in his press conference, like, we're going to see what we're really made of now and who really wants to be a part of this team. So I'm expecting a bit of a response because he will demand them standards. So like, yeah, I think we might just edge it, but I think it will be close either way, regardless of the way it swings.
Well, we're not expecting to clear out half the roster. So I just think that he's going to see players when he came in. He knew that this squad wasn't good. He knew this squad wasn't good. There are players here that he doesn't really want here, and he's going to whittle it down to who's going to want to be here and who he doesn't want to be here. I think we're in that part of it now, regarding which.
I will be honest. I loved Mike Vrabel being hired there. It's just it felt like the right fit for the right organization to try and steer back, in the right direction.
We needed an adult in the room. I think that's the most blatant, that's the bluntest response I've got for that. We needed an adult in the room. We needed a leader of men. He is a leader of men.
Absolutely.
So we needed that desperately. Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say as well, I think from the Dolphins' point of view, I think if you're watching and the Dolphins play well, you always have to bear in the back of your mind that I think every team suffers a bad loss every year, where you just scratch your head and you're like, I can't believe my team has lost it. And pretty much every team goes through it. Unfortunately, the Dolphins did it in week 1. So there is the possibility that they return to what you think they were going to be, and whatever you thought they might be. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
That is not a great reflection of who they are. But I say, I do think a lot of teams go through it. Let's be honest, right? I'm sure you hate seeing the Bills roll into town as much as everyone else. But guess who doesn't? Zach Wilson and the New York Jets. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird one. The same way as, when the Patriots were at their height, still didn't like coming to Hard Rock Stadium. That must have been a pig. Do you know what I mean? So I think it happens, but it's going to make for a very interesting matchup with two teams who really kind of feel desperate for wins just to get the season kicked off.
100%. It's a must-win for both teams. I've got two final questions for you, Lee, before I hand over to Karl for his final segment. They're just quite quick. Firstly, I've seen a lot of rumours online about Mike McDaniel's future. You kind of touched on it a bit earlier in the podcast, but there is a bit of talk whether if we beat you in this game, that he may get fired. So my question would be, A, if we win, does McDaniels get fired? And B, does Tyreek Hill get traded before the deadline in week 9?
Simple answer is no and no. I think you could probably. I think it's more likely Coach McDaniel got sacked if the defense had turned up last week. But this being such a full, who are you going to put in charge? Like, because if they played the way they did last week, it doesn't matter who's in charge. They were awful across the board. I know that the fan base will tell you, and you'll definitely see online, people say, "Oh, Coach Anthony Weaver has come across as a good coach, has done a great job as a defensive coordinator," until last week when they couldn't stop anyone. So I think it's an interesting position. Does he get fired after this week? I think it very much comes down to the manner of the defeat. If you were to get beat in a scoreline that we were saying, and you look like you are the team that you thought you were, then probably not, because you're going to lose 2 games in the season. Yeah, it just means you need to go and win another game later on. I don't think that happens. Does Tyreek get traded? Before the deadline is what makes it an interesting question, because by then you'll know this team is actually bad. If they're bad, then yeah, he absolutely gets traded because he's an aging asset. People love to make the connection because the Chiefs need a wide receiver. Obviously makes sense for him to try and go back there. People keep wanting to send him to the Steelers because we just traded Jalen Ramsey there. That's cool. Tyreek's not wanted out. It's been a story that's been hard to put to bed in the off season, right? So at the end of the season last year, basically said he was sick of losing. He didn't want to be there in the Jets locker room after a loss on the last day of the season. So he played the entire season with a damaged ligament in his wrist after being arrested by the police heading into the stadium week 1 last year. There was a lot of frustration, and he said to the Dolphins team and to the media, he didn't want to be interviewed. And the Dolphins asked him to go and be interviewed. And that seems like a recipe to get a bad answer. And he gave a bad answer. So the kind of the narrative of the offseason has been, him and Tua and him and the team are not on the same page. And I think that would all been quelled in training camp if they had a normal training camp. But Tyreek gets hurt in week 1 of training camp. He hurt and he had a muscle strain that basically kept him out of the entire preseason. He didn't play a snap in the preseason. He didn't take part in any joint practices or any team practices until a week before the season. So usually Tua throws some touchdowns to him in training camp. They look like they usually do. This question has gone to bed, but it didn't. Then they came back in week 1. He missed him on that first interception, and it just adds fuel to the fire. We'll know more after this week if they look like they're getting back on the same page. Tua is absolutely a rhythm quarterback when it comes to being in sync with his wide receivers. Him missing time is, not good for anybody, but I think it hurts that connection on the field. So hopefully we see them get a little bit back on track this week.
Okay. Right. There's a little segment that we are now going to do just as neutrals. Okay. And it's called the Blazing Six. So what I've got for you two gentlemen is what we're going to do is a little competition between us and obviously our guests each time they come on each week. They make their own picks and so on, and they go up against either me or Kieran and so on. So I've got 6 teams. Sorry, 6 matchups, right? All have a spread that I've got from Bet365. So what I want from you is, does the opposing team cover or does the team take the points? So the first game I got on your docket, Chicago at Detroit. Detroit are -6.5 favorites. Lee, we'll start with you.
Detroit cover that.
Line to cover it, okay. Kez?
I actually think Chicago will cover that. I like the Lions. They've got a lot of firepower, but I think there were definitely good signs from the Bears in that Vikings game the other night. And I think they will run that game close. So, yeah, I'm going to go Chicago to cover. I think Detroit will win, but I think Chicago will cover the spread, basically. Yeah.
Okay. You're the ones going against it. I'm taking Detroit and the points. I can't. Sorry, after what I saw Monday night, what Chicago did was embarrassing. Anyhow, so we've got that one there. Cleveland, the Browns at the Ravens. Now, this is a real nerve-wracking one. -11.5. The biggest spread of the week. Is it worth going for the Ravens points, or are we gonna go?
Give me the Browns.
What, to win out?
Yeah, give me the Browns to cover.
Oh, Browns to cover. Okay, fine.
Sorry, give me the Browns to cover. Yeah, I just think like they've got great pass rush. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you know, the Ravens are a great team, right? But they're the ones that are kind of having to prove something after that week one loss. Like, people didn't expect the Browns to be a great team, but the Ravens having a lead against the Bills in a big game and like fumbling that feels like the pressure's kind of on them and in a home game. So,
okay, Kieran,
I'm taking the Ravens to cover. I don't know. Like, Cleveland's defense is fantastic. Like, it really is. But like, I just don't see how they're going to keep up with the points in this game, to be honest. Like, I don't think that offense has got much in it, to be honest. I think they looked okay in spells last week against the Bengals, but the Bengals defensively aren't great. So, yeah, I think the Ravens will absolutely poleaxe them, to be honest.
And let's be real, the Bengals only won that game because the Browns kicker decided now would be a good time to ruin their career.
You know what? I'd never even heard of that Browns kicker until he missed that kick. Like, I thought they had someone else. Like,
well, speaking of the Bengals, they're next on the docket. They play Jacksonville. Cincy are at home and they are favourite by -3.5.
Yeah, I'm taking the Bengals to cover. They're at home. They won last week. I think the Jags will definitely score some points in the game, though. But I think the Bengals will just got too much firepower for the Jags.
yeah, give me the same.
Why? Cincy's first two games of the regular season doesn't usually go well. As I said to you, the only reason they won that game was because the Browns kicker decided to kick himself out of the league. I think this is one of a few upsets of this week, so I'm going to take Jacksonville straight up. I'm taking Jags to go straight up on this one. 49ers at Saints. 49ers. Well. Mac Jones is back, baby. Oh, you're so fucked. Anyway.
I did see a thing the other day where it said Mac Jones versus Spencer Rattler might be the worst NFL game of all time. I think this game is going to be disgustingly bad to watch.
Let me steal a line from my good friend Fleck from the Sleep at Work network. It's a game for all the wrong reasons, and it's probably that it probably will be. But the 49ers are -3 favourites on the road.
I'll take the 49ers.
Straight up.
Yep.
Okay. 49ers cover, right?
Yeah, I think I'll do the same, just because I believe that Shanahan will probably find a way for Mac Jones to look serviceable in that system. And I genuinely think the Saints are a shoo-in for the #1 overall pick this year. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to win many games. But if they are to win one, this might be it.
Serviceable with Mac Jones is a very optimistic word you use there, Kieran. So
he's a system quarterback, and he might look all right in that system.
He might actually, if he throws for 3 touchdowns and like 300 yards, they're going to be like, what the? Shanahan's just a genius.
I'll be honest, I actually fancy picking up Mac Jones in free agency because I would have taken anyone over Zach Wilson to put in the same system.
Do you think is Zach Wilson the 2, or did Quinn Ewers not quite oust him just yet?
He's the #2 because he's played in the NFL. Other than that,
yeah.
I mean, his play on the field is abysmal. Like, even when he came in at the end of the game, okay, a bad game, everything's going wrong. He was abysmal.
Yeah.
Right, okay. I'll take 49ers. I'll take 49ers to cover then. Take 49ers to cover. Bucks at Houston. Houston are -2 favourites.
Give me the Bucks.
Okay, Kieran?
I don't know why I picked the Bucks. Every time I pick the Bucks, they play like crap.
This is a really tough game, actually. This is two really good teams. I'm gonna take Houston. I just think.
Houston to cover or Houston?
Bucks were a bit fortunate to win last week, and obviously the scoreline was a little bit kind on them. Just they actually had the late touchdown, didn't they? But yeah, they were a bit fortunate to win in the end. So I'm gonna take Houston at home.
Houston home. Okay, the last game on the docket. Of course, it has to be the Super Bowl from this year's matchup. Eagles at Chiefs. Eagles are -1 favourite.
It's -1.
-1.
Who's -1? Sorry, say that again.
Eagles. Eagles are favourite with -1.
Oh yeah, give me the Eagles.
Kaz?
I'm also going to take the Eagles. I don't know if, as much as I fancy the Chiefs to do well this year, I don't think that much has changed since the Super Bowl, to be honest. And I still think that the Eagles just will completely have them in all phases of the game. So,
Okay, yeah, I've gone for the Eagles as well. You watch now the Kansas City Chiefs turn into freaking what they played like 2 years ago. They actually destroy them. You watch. I was like having his back against the wall. Anyhow, Lee, thank you so much for coming on. It is very, very, very much appreciated. Just let everyone know the link to the channel for Dol-Fan UK is in the description. It's also in the title. Please make sure you also go on Spotify as well and give them a follow. And what have we got coming up?
Just a little bit of everything. Hopefully, less therapy sessions would be good. There seems to have been a lot of that over the end of the last season to the start of this. But yeah, hopefully pick up into the season, break some stuff down. I tell you what, it's fun to come on and chat with you guys. It's fun to talk to other UK podcasts and just be able to chop it up and break down the games. It's fun. It's a great community. So yeah, the more we can do this, the better. And I think we're looking to get more people on our podcast. We've just had some changes that we've gone through, so hopefully that will pick up in the next couple of weeks as well.
Brilliant. Okay, Kez, as always, thank you so much for coming on, mate, and giving up just over an hour of your Friday night to do a preview on this game. That's it for us for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you smash the like button on the way out. Hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Make sure you tell all your friends. Follow us on our social media platforms. Follow the podcast on Spotify and on Apple as well. And we will be back on Tuesday night for a review of the Dolphins game. Hopefully, it's a winning review and not another losing review, because I don't have to keep using this beeping machine all the time. So, without further ado, Lee, thank you so much. It's an absolute honour to have you on. Take care and, go Patriots. Let's squish the fish. Good night, everybody.